Hour, I'm asking, is Gillian Keegan right? Are children not a priority under Labour? Claims made in the Telegraph. The Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, has warned that the Labour Party private schools policy is reckless and that the Labour Party do not care about children. Now, this comes after the Labour Party confirmed in its manifesto this week that it will end the VAT exemption for independent schools, which could add 20% to fees as early as September. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Gillian right? Are the Labour Party not making children a priority? Well, joining me now to discuss my panel, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and editor-at-large for the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. I'm going to start with you, Charlotte.
So, I've been in the Mail on Sunday. I've been reading up on some little stats. Lady Starmer herself, Lady Victoria Starmer, paid £26,000 a year for her education. She went to Channing, an independent girls' school, not an Eton, obviously, because Eton's boys only, but not one of these super mega ones. It's an independent school in North London, and the fees are £26,000 per year. Now, over the course of the junior and senior school, parents at that school will now have to find an extra £70,000 per child.
Wow.
with VAT. And I think it's a really good piece in the Mail on Sunday because it shows the hypocrisy of all this. And it's such an ideological point from Keir Starmer, I think. And it affects teachers because teachers are now going to have to battle bigger class sizes. So he doesn't care about teachers. And Labour doesn't care about middle-class children because, you know, it's the middle classes that have something to that aspire towards sending their kids to private schools, and he doesn't care about state school children because they are going to be swamped with pupils from those small middle-of-the-road independent schools. And I'm not talking about Eton here because it's true what Wes Streeting says, that Eton probably won't pass on those savings, and if it does, the kind of pupils there who are oligarchs can probably afford it. But it's those middle schools, those independent ones like Channing, that are really going to be hit.
Although Labour might argue that they are doing something for children because they have talked about launching breakfast clubs and also having, I think it's 3,000 new nurseries within schools that already exist. So they might argue that this is just one thing and actually this particular policy might fund all that, and that's what they might see. Danny Kelly.
Well, it's socialism, isn't it? They're getting wealthy families to pay for families that aren't wealthy, or the perception of wealth. Not everyone's minted who sends their kids to school. It's not disposable income that mums and dads are spending. And also, one of your contributors earlier on made a blanket statement that all private schools are businesses and need to respond to shareholders. That's just not factually correct. That's just untrue. And whilst people have that mindset that it's businesses who are benefiting, then we're not going to develop the conversation. Most of them are charitable status schools, and if they make any money at the end of the financial year, it's for the furtherance of that school. They may build a tennis court, they may build a new school, and it's for the furtherance rather than for shareholders. And it was interesting with the guest earlier on, the Labour guy. He is incorrigibly, with his mindset, he just sees people making money, and that's what the problem is. Not everybody in private schools are there to make money.
Well, the point he did also make was that 93% of children of children go to state schools and only 7% go to these private or independent type schools.
Yeah.
My point was, well, so to hell with them, because what happens to them? Charlotte, do you think that that's a little bit unfeeling for that 7%?
I think that is a bit unfeeling. I mean, my kids go to state school, but we do that thing, that very middle-class thing, state till 8. So we were hoping to use the first 8 years of my daughter's life to save for her senior school years, and that's kind of gone out the window now. And each of my children costs the state about £7,000 a year, a bit more actually, just under 8. So in total, my 3 children are going to cost the state sector £23,000 a year now because my husband and I have decided we can't afford to just go that little tiny bit extra to send our kids to an independent school, which is what we were hoping for, but it's just that tiny slither that we actually probably won't be able to afford now.
It's the expansion of the classes as well, isn't it? You know, mums and dads will tell you in various parts of the Midlands and the North there are 35, 40 kids in a class. Yeah. Now, there's going to be some kids there, overspill, if you like, from the private sector. Mums and dads can't afford the extra 20%. And now all of a sudden the classrooms are going to burgeon to, say, 45 or 46. You know, Emily, what's her name?
Thornbury. She was very dismissive, wasn't she?
Casually dismissive.
Flippant.
Yeah, and she was put on the spot by a GB News presenter. I can't remember the name. I think it was Camilla Tominey. I can't remember. But it made national news because basically she was backed into a corner and she had to accept that the mums and dads' kids were going to have to go into the state sector and those classes were going to get big and big and bigger.
And she said, didn't she? She said, oh, well, maybe for a while there'll be a few more children in the class.
Casual.
Now, my daughter is at a school and there's 30 kids in the class. It only takes one child, disruptive child, to push the class over the edge. And my daughter's teacher, I've actually seen her in tears because they had a very disruptive child all this year and it completely disrupted the whole year group because there wasn't enough extra support for this teacher who was doing her best to manage 35-year-olds and 6-year-olds and then this one extra disruptive child. You know, bless him, he had his own issues, which actually... Of course, there wasn't enough support to take care of him either. And it only takes one extra child. And Emily's saying, oh, there might be an extra 5, 10, 15 children in the class.
But they also put the point forward that class sizes are actually shrinking because of the population. So we had this burst of young people, but now the birth rate has fallen, so there are fewer people coming up through the system. So
well, it depends on the area.
Well.
And by the way, this is going to affect the birth rate. My husband and I were going to have a fourth child, and we decided definitely not to now because there's no way we can afford any of these of our children to go to an independent school. So we're sticking to 3, probably wise.
I mean, the idea would be to get the state sector on a par with the private sector, which is what I would rather they focused on, and they can take money from other things, but